In a high-end residential neighborhood where the appearance of perfection is meticulously maintained through every detail of modern houses, elegant fences, and vibrant flower gardens, where the strict regulations of the Homeowners Association (HOA) are not just dry legal clauses but intricate pieces of power and control, forming a vivid yet paradoxical and secretive picture. Beneath that glamorous facade lie fragile souls, untold stories, and deeply personal emotions of each resident. Amid this picture stands a distinctive figure, a humble congressman who, despite holding a position of power in the national political system, chooses to live as an ordinary citizen within the community, always striving to uphold fairness and human values. Every step he takes on the marble-paved roads and every voice of the surrounding residents is heard by him as the heartbeat of a shared soul. By his side is always his loyal companion, a service dog with intelligent eyes, a sleek coat, and a warm heart, not just an indispensable aid in emergencies but also a symbol of loyalty and a sacred friendship that transcends time and space. In the crisp morning air, as the first rays of sunlight weave through the ancient tree leaves, the neighborhood residents gradually spark small conversations, warm greetings like "Good morning, how are you?" and gentle discussions about adherence to HOA rules. Each word is like a small brick contributing to the spiritual walls between like-minded individuals, yet at the same time, there are simmering frustrations among some residents who secretly feel that these regulations are not only rigid but also a trap that restrains personal freedom. In this atmosphere, HOA meetings take place regularly on cool afternoons where members in formal suits solemnly discuss property value preservation. However, whispers of concern cannot be avoided that no matter how perfect things may seem on the surface, within each house still reside the cracks of the past, silent sorrows that only the truly perceptive can recognize. Even as the golden hues of sunset paint the sky, the night's stories continue to echo through the streets, through the eyes of the experienced and the youthful spirits alike. One evening, as streetlights began to shimmer in the city's cool air, amidst a light-hearted chat between neighbors, an elderly man with a deep, soothing voice once murmured to his closest friend, "We live in a picture of perfection. But there are always subtle cracks that only those who truly cherish freedom can perceive." That remark served as a stark reminder of the harsh reality that beauty exists only when shadows do, and at that very moment, in the enigmatic gaze of a graceful woman, in the soft smiles carrying unspoken emotions, everything seemed to recount the story of a community immersed in an underlying conflict between personal interests and collective obligations, between the perfection of appearances and the sorrows of the soul. Meanwhile, our congressman, renowned for his steadfastness, quiet passion, and unwavering belief in justice, stepped out of his home, his simple suit exuding sincerity. His gentle yet sharp eyes observed every minute movement of life around him. As he encountered a neighbor in the shared hallway, the warmth in her voice echoed against the footsteps, and she said, "We must preserve the values this neighborhood has built over the years." In that moment, through those heartfelt words, the two seemed to share a belief that although the HOA rules might be rigid and unchangeable, kindness, loyalty, and understanding among residents are what can soften the cracks of life. As he walked through the corridors filled with memories, where every house was a story and every garden a piece of nostalgia and dreams, the congressman and his loyal dog continued their journey not just as witnesses of time but as architects of the future. With steps both gentle and resolute, he absorbed every moment, the laughter of children playing in the park, the hushed discussions of adults about the rules they must follow. He took it all in with a warm heart and a boundless soul, because he understood that, while the exterior of this community might be adorned with colors of perfection, it is the everyday stories, the bittersweet fragments of memory, that truly define life's value. And as darkness slowly descended, with streetlights twinkling like tiny stars in the vast space, he and his loyal dog, like two kindred spirits, continued strolling down familiar paths. Deep in his heart, his late mother's words echoed, "Justice and compassion are the only things that can heal all wounds." That lesson shone like a guiding light amid the darkness of injustices. Then, amidst the whispering winds and rustling leaves, in a moment of tranquility, he suddenly paused beside a small stream where the water reflected the silver moonlight. In that stillness, everything became clear. Memories of his youth as a soldier resurfaced, recollections of the times he was disheartened by witnessing injustice, yet also his enduring belief in a brighter tomorrow, where even an ordinary individual could change an entire system. Despite the challenges that might shake people's faith, he knew that love, honesty, and genuine care were the only eternal values. As he smiled, the warm gaze of his loyal dog reflected that hope, and at that moment, the world around them seemed to awaken with a newfound vibrancy, a life force of faith, unity, and human connection. And so, in that quiet night, the humble congressman and his faithful companion etched in their hearts the certainty that no matter how stringent the regulations or how silently injustices seep into the corners of the neighborhood, only understanding, empathy, and courage can pave the way toward a promising and fulfilling future. A future where the rigid walls of regulations gradually dissolve under the power of love, where every drop of sweat, every sigh, and every sincere smile of the residents contribute to a grand narrative of life. And then, as dawn's first light breaks, illuminating the neighborhood with the glow of a hopeful new day, it serves as a reminder to everyone that, despite the lingering scars of past pains and disappointments, here, among the familiar streets and houses steeped in time, they can always find faith in renewal and the strength of human kindness. And in that harmony, the story of a humble congressman and his devoted companion continues to unfold with every passing moment, through every laugh and every tear, a living testament to the belief that, despite all hardships and trials, the light of justice and love will always shine, guiding every soul in their quest for life's true meaning. On a peaceful afternoon, as warm sunlight filtered through the leaves of ancient trees and the air was filled with the cheerful laughter and lively chatter of residents gathering for a small yet meaningful community event where the space was meticulously decorated. Tables and chairs carefully arranged, small banquet tables laden with delicious food and the gentle melodies of soft music drifting through the atmosphere at the very moment when harmony seemed complete, an unforeseen tragedy struck. With shocking brutality. Amid the crowd, the service dog, the loyal companion of the congressman, cherished by all not only for its intelligence, gentleness, and unwavering devotion but also as a symbol of loyalty and belief in human kindness, suddenly became the victim of a cruel act carried out by the security forces of the Homeowners Association (HOA). These individuals, entrusted with maintaining order and discipline within the neighborhood in that instant under the rigidity of inhumane pet regulations, lost the flexibility needed to show compassion for special circumstances. In a single gunshot that shattered the air of hope, bullets, like streaks of lightning, tore through space and struck the small body of the dog, instantly turning the vibrant laughter and chatter into pained gasps and sheer horror. The sight of the dog collapsing, blood flowing along the delicate contours of its sleek fur, created a scene so chaotic and devastating that those who witnessed it could not help but be overwhelmed with shock. Cries and screams filled the space, blending with the lingering echoes of gunfire, and even the earlier friendly exchanges between neighbors. Questions like, "How could this happen?" or "This is not the right way to solve problems," could do nothing to soothe the fear and mounting outrage in everyone's hearts. And there, in the midst of it all, the congressman, a man who had lived humbly, who had always valued fairness and humanity, stood frozen, a mixture of shock and deep sorrow on his face, his eyes fixated on the brutal scene before him. His heart was torn apart by the sheer helplessness of witnessing his loyal companion, a friend who had stood by him through countless trials, now being treated with such inhumanity by the very people entrusted with maintaining the community's order. In that moment, all thoughts of the value of life, of love, and of human dignity faded into obscurity, replaced by a searing pain as if the very sky had changed color from a deep blue to a suffocating gray. The silence that followed the gunshot rang out like a dire proclamation, an ominous reminder of the oppression wielded by a system that had abandoned its moral responsibility. Before long, murmurs spread among the residents, hushed conversations like fragmented pieces of a shattered painting trying to be reassembled. Soft yet grief-stricken voices whispered, "We have lost our loyal friend, and how could we allow this to happen in the heart of our home?" A stark contrast to the cold, rigid HOA regulations that had dictated this tragedy. And even as tearful eyes bore witness to the event, there were still voices attempting to justify the brutality, saying, "These were the rules we agreed upon," or, "If we make exceptions, it could lower property values." But in that space, such words only underscored the irreparable loss and the weight of injustice. Every drop of blood that seeped into the ground became a reminder of the cruelty lurking within the very structure of the neighborhood. As the community struggled to process the shock, the congressman's sorrow became evident in his heavy expression, his eyes filled with pain and unspoken fury. He turned to a close friend in the crowd and, in a quiet but resolute voice, said, "I cannot believe my own eyes. We are witnessing an unforgivable mistake." His words were not just the cry of a broken heart, they were a warning to the entire community that beneath the guise of security regulations lay a deep-seated injustice, soaked in blood. Meanwhile, the sight of the lifeless dog, lying there amid the gathering, became the focal point of an intense debate, one that revolved around individual rights, ethics, and the delicate balance between security and freedom. Each resident found themselves questioning whether the value of life and love could truly be measured by rigid rules that ignored the essence of humanity. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of gold before surrendering to the darkness of night, the voices within the crowd grew louder, more emotional. Whispers turned into determined statements. We cannot stay silent in the face of this cruelty, and change must happen. Justice must prevail. Each declaration was a small piece of a larger movement, a collective resistance, and a testament to the fact that no matter how powerful a system may be, the human spirit, united in kindness and justice, could never be extinguished. And in that moment, as the gunfire ceased and the only sound remaining was the heavy breathing of those struggling to comprehend the horror they had just witnessed, the silence became unbearably heavy, as if each heart in the crowd had been buried beneath a layer of ice, paralyzed by grief, by injustice. When the congressman's gaze fell upon the fading eyes of his faithful companion, he could no longer contain his sorrow and anger. In that instant, he realized that the greatest tragedy was not merely the loss of a small life, but the collapse of trust in a system that was meant to uphold order yet had become a tool of violence and oppression. The entire community was pulled into an emotional storm, where from innocent children to wise elders, all could feel that this was not just an unfortunate incident, but a battle between power and humanity, between soulless regulations and the living, breathing values of human kindness. In that defining moment, the cries, the lamentations, and the tear-filled eyes bore witness to a collective grief and irreplaceable loss. As the sorrowful atmosphere spread across the gathering, conversations grew more fervent, more impassioned, with people finding the courage to speak out even if only in hesitant voices. We cannot let this cruelty take root in our hearts forever. We must stand together, protect the values of compassion that we have nurtured for so many years. These words, though small, began to weave a thread of unity, forming an undeniable force of resistance. And from within the darkness of that fateful afternoon, though wounds were still fresh and pain had only begun to settle in, seeds of hope had already been planted, a silent vow that no matter how ruthless the storm of injustice, human kindness, courage, and the pursuit of justice would always shine as a guiding light. Though that day left an indelible mark on the memories of all who bore witness, it was through that very pain that the community began to awaken. Slowly, they realized that only through solidarity, only through kindness and the courage to stand up against injustice could they dispel the shadows of oppression. And as the last light of sunset gave way to the darkness of night, the sight of the fallen service dog, its blood soaking into the soft grass of the park, became a symbol, a warning that no matter how powerful authority may be and no matter how ruthless the rules, love, empathy, and the unyielding spirit of a united community would always find a way to rise above, to heal, and to forge a future where justice and humanity were not just abstract ideals, but living, breathing truths. From the sorrow of one fateful afternoon, the story of a lost loyal friend became etched in the hearts of all as a painful but invaluable lesson, a reminder that only we can paint the picture of justice and compassion. And even if darkness looms, the light of truth and humanity will always find a path, leading those who dare to dream, those who refuse to remain silent, toward a future where violence and injustice are nothing more than distant memories, a past that they have overcome. Together, each lament, each tear, and each drop of spilled blood became the flame that illuminated hope, faith, and the strength to rebuild a community worthy of the value of life and the boundless depth of human kindness. As the atmosphere of the residential community still echoed with sighs of sorrow and the lingering pain following the tragedy of a loyal companion, the Homeowners Association (HOA) management, proud guardians of a perfect and strictly orderly living environment believed to be the protectors of property values and the community's image, swiftly responded as soon as phones buzzed incessantly with complaints and messages filled with shock from residents. They immediately argued that keeping dogs, even those trained to assist individuals with special needs, was the root cause of declining property values. According to them, the presence of these four-legged beings not only disrupted the landscape but also detracted from the uniform aesthetic that the community had painstakingly built over the years. Their argument was reinforced by financial reports, market analyses, and statistical data presented at press conferences held right after the incident, where the cold voices of HOA representatives rang out with statements like, "The value of our shared property is under serious threat, and all decisions must be based on economic rationale, not personal emotions." These declarations quickly spread across various media channels, from official HOA website announcements to local news articles and online forums, igniting a fierce debate among residents. A faction of the community, particularly real estate investors and those prioritizing property value preservation, did not hesitate to assert, We must put economic interests first because a depreciating property affects everyone's financial future. Meanwhile, another group, those who valued humanity and compassion for the vulnerable, strongly opposed this reasoning, affirming we cannot trade love and empathy for mere numbers on a piece of paper. Every living being, no matter how small, has an invaluable existence and symbolizes loyalty and sacrifice. These words, whether spoken casually in small roadside cafes or in informal neighborhood gatherings, planted seeds of faith in justice and humanity, further deepening the divide between supporters of HOA's strict policies and those opposing them. This divide became even more evident through heated press conferences and online debates where posts such as human worth cannot be measured by economic indicators and we don't live here just to accumulate assets but to nourish our souls, appeared repeatedly, fueling a strong wave of resistance within the community. The atmosphere grew tense as if every word and every glance carried an unyielding belief in the necessity of justice and humanity. At the same time, local media-organized meetings attracted hundreds of attendees, including economic experts, social activists, and ordinary residents, all passionately discussing whether stringent regulations should continue to be enforced. Could the protection of property value justify cruel and inhumane actions? Amid this charged environment, analysts pointed out, if we only rely on financial indicators to assess the value of a community, we are losing the spiritual and moral essence of human existence. This analysis further fueled division, as some agreed, saying, economic logic must come first. Otherwise, we will fall into the chaos of unconditional freedom, while others countered, we need balance between economic benefits and human values because without love and empathy, financial figures are nothing but soulless numbers. These sentiments echoed in silent conversations at symposiums, while HOA representatives remained steadfast in their stance, insisting, we are acting in the best interest of the community, and if anything threatens property values, strict action is unavoidable. Their words were not just statements but guiding principles for every decision they made. Meanwhile, outside on the streets, protesters gathered, holding signs that read, humanity above all, justice for all living beings, and don't let economic interests kill compassion. Their impassioned cries filled the damp air of unrest, creating a stark contrast between the rigid HOA system and the free, humanitarian spirit of the people. Through every conversation, every exchange among friends and neighbors, it seemed that everyday stories added more depth and color to the community's broader picture. An elderly man, speaking to his longtime friend at a small tea shop, reflected, we live in a beautiful but deeply conflicted place because these rigid rules can never replace human kindness. If this continues, we will lose the soul of our lives. Meanwhile, a young woman, her voice calm yet firm, declared, I believe every person has the right to live freely and humanely, and if life's value is reduced to mere numbers, we have lost the true meaning of existence. Though spoken in hushed tones within the vast conversation of the community, these words ignited flames of resistance and a desire for change, making the atmosphere increasingly tense and turbulent, like dark storm clouds obscuring a once clear sky. As these debates spread through media channels, news articles, and online discussions, the image of this seemingly perfect residential area began to crack, exposing fractures not only between economic classes but also between moral values, between those who prioritized financial interests and those who cherished human dignity. Amidst this chaos, every resident, whether a vocal advocate or a quiet observer in the night, gradually realized that in a system where economic interests reigned supreme, not only were numbers being calculated, but the very essence of human values and community bonds were slowly eroding. The rigidity of regulations seemed to wash away faith and the desire for authentic living. Thus, every voice of dissent, every call for fairness became an embodiment of a collective awakening, a community seeking to reclaim its identity in the tide of time. What began as a tragedy involving a loyal dog had now evolved into a new chapter of reckoning, a confrontation with deeply ingrained biases within the HOA's governance. Every meeting and debate became an arena for passionate souls, for those daring to speak up, to challenge an invisible yet unyieldingly rigid system. Against the backdrop of official HOA statements and the rising grievances of residents, internal divisions surfaced like scratches on an ancient painting. Every resident, from seasoned elders to fiery youths, began questioning whether life should truly be measured by sterile financial indices. In a world where humanity and kindness were becoming distant concepts, could anyone truly claim to have lived a fulfilling life, one that honored human connection and emotional depth? Through every conversation, every gathering, and every small act of resistance or gratitude, the image of a divided community, torn apart by economic arguments, gradually transformed into an epic of resilience and courage. Not only the loudest voices but even the smallest hearts felt that while financial figures could be calculated, the value of human love, loyalty, and kindness could never be replaced or reassessed. And in the end, amid cries of sorrow, words of outrage, and silent tears, an unending dialogue emerged. One that sought balance between logic and emotion, between economic relationships and humanitarian ideals. Through all the hardships and fierce debates, the community slowly realized that only empathy, love, and unwavering resolve could help them transcend the rigid confines of regulations, ultimately rebuilding a neighborhood where not only property values were safeguarded, but where life, dignity, and compassion were cherished like the rarest of treasures. As the light of new days dawned and wounds slowly healed, the words of those who had resisted, those who dared to speak, were etched into the hearts of many. We cannot lose our humanity for the sake of numbers on paper, and the true value of a home lies not only in its facade but in the soul of its people. These statements left an indelible mark, a message that would never fade. No matter how deep the divisions or how intense the conflicts, humanity, compassion, and the desire to live meaningfully would always serve as guiding flames. No matter how the world changed, the value of life and love would remain eternal, a powerful affirmation that in every person, even when tested by rigid rules and systemic prejudices, only sincerity, empathy, and perseverance could create a truly fulfilling future. As such, this community, once fractured by cold economic arguments, gradually found its way back to itself, holding on to the belief that while wounds might never fully disappear, love and sincerity would always be the most powerful healers, carrying with them promises, dreams, and an unyielding hope for a future where human worth was valued beyond any numerical figure. At a time when everything seemed to be plunging into the abyss of despair, when the residential community was still filled with murmurs of complaints, silent tears merging with the somber air after the tragedy that took the life of a loyal companion, and when the chaos and intensity of resistance had yet to subside, spreading through every alley and street, suddenly, amidst the tumultuous crowd, a member of Congress, known for his simple way of life and unwavering belief in justice, humanity, and truth, stepped onto a small podium at the center of a self-organized community press conference. With piercing eyes and a resolute voice that thundered like a storm breaking through the gloomy sky, he declared firmly and without hesitation, "I am a member of the United States Congress." That statement struck the minds of the Homeowners Association, HOA management, a group that had long prided itself on maintaining order, protecting property values, and preserving the community's image like a bolt of lightning. They were left stunned, bewildered, and at a loss for how to react. Meanwhile, the surrounding crowd transitioned from shock to outrage, as a mixture of admiration and anger erupted like the echo of a society refusing to remain silent in the face of injustice. Without hesitation, the congressman wielded his political power with his characteristic composure and sharpness, immediately launching a federal investigation to expose the HOA's wrongdoings, the ruthless and inhumane actions they had coldly executed. His demand for transparency, fairness, and accountability shattered the carefully crafted facade of the so-called perfect residential area. As each document, meeting record, and HOA commitment was gradually unmasked, the horrifying truth beneath the surface began to emerge. Resistance voices surged from every corner of society, on online forums, in prestigious newspapers, at neighborhood gatherings, and in public speeches at community centers. The resounding statements, "We cannot let the power of private organizations override justice and human dignity, and justice must always take precedence," untainted by shallow economic interests, became powerful affirmations that truth and human worth could not be measured by numbers or concealed by rigid regulations. As this storm of resistance intensified, Not only the residents of the community, but the entire public began expressing their discontent, demanding comprehensive reforms in housing governance to ensure that the abuses and power overreach of the HOA would never be repeated. As the federal investigation unfolded methodically, experts, social activists, and ordinary citizens gradually realized that the very regulations meant to protect property value had become tools of oppression, cold, inhumane mechanisms that stripped the community of its soul and spirit. Even as the political atmosphere grew tense, open dialogues were conducted through continuous press conferences and public hearings, where the voices of those who had suffered and those who dared to resist created a new wave of hope. The congressman stood firm in his stance, repeatedly declaring, "Justice shall not bow to the power of private organizations. Every human being, regardless of status, deserves to live in a society where transparency and dignity are upheld above all else." His words, like glimmers of light piercing through the darkness, ignited a powerful movement for reform, not only changing the way HOAs operated, but also sparking widespread debates about the limits of private power in modern society. Gradually, small yet significant changes began to take shape, from revisions in management practices to adjustments in community regulations, to the establishment of independent oversight committees ensuring that all community governance actions were executed with transparency and accountability. Meanwhile, the congressman, alongside his colleagues in Congress and federal agencies, persistently worked and negotiated, reaffirming, "We must build a new legal framework where economic value is protected, but never at the expense of human dignity, fairness, and freedom." These declarations resonated not just through the mass media, but were also inscribed in legislative documents and resolutions, painting a broad picture of a society awakening to the power of truth and solidarity. Though not everyone agreed with these changes, some voices opposed, arguing, "Government interference in private affairs will lead to imbalance and chaos." The aftermath of the event had already opened a new chapter in community governance, raising profound questions about the limits of private authority in contemporary society. As federal investigations pressed forward, those complicit in the HOA's abuses were gradually held accountable, rekindling public faith in justice and in their own power to stand up for their rights. At subsequent press conferences, amidst applause, murmurs, and even the tears of those who had once lost hope, the congressman, in a steady yet commanding voice, solemnly declared, "Justice shall never be subdued, no matter how formidable the forces of injustice may be." His words, a promise, a message of unwavering faith, served as a reminder that though the scars of the past may never fully fade, every step toward change, every collective effort, is a move toward a future where human value is measured not by numbers on paper, but by acts of compassion, dignity, and love. Even as this case achieved a semblance of justice, it left many unanswered questions about the limits of private power in modern society. Yet, within the hearts of those who had endured loss and pain, a deeper truth prevailed, that only honesty, courage, and unity could pave the way for a brighter future, where justice and humanity would always triumph. And so, amid the flickering light of hope, the echoes of justice, and the unwavering spirit of the community, the journey toward change continued, opening new doors for dreams, for aspirations of freedom and fairness. The story of the unexpected revelation, the political reckoning known as "Unaware I'm Congress," became a symbol of defiance against oppression, a powerful reminder that no matter how fierce the storm of prejudice and power abuse may be, the light of truth, justice, and humanity shall never be extinguished. It became a beacon for those seeking a way out of darkness, paving the way for a future where every tear, every sigh, and every laugh, despite carrying the pain of the past, became precious gems contributing to the vivid portrait of a just society. In this space, under the glow of a promising tomorrow, even as questions about the limits of private power remained, it was courage, honesty, and the indomitable human spirit that fueled a quiet revolution, a revolution of the soul. It sparked hope for a future where justice is not just an abstract concept but a living, breathing reality. And through it all, every voice, every action of the community would forever echo as a pledge toward a brighter day. A society where, despite unerasable scars, kindness, bravery, and the desire for freedom would always prevail. Thus, the story of change, defiance, and the political strike of Unaware I'm Congress stands as a testament to the truth that even when injustice builds walls of oppression, the willpower of humanity, compassion, and unity will always break through, leading every heart toward the light of justice and freedom.